Hello, I'm Terry, and today we're going to be laying track. We're going to be getting the first engine running on our new model railway. So keep watching. This is the Terry Nutlob Model Railway Station. Hello, welcome back. I'm Terry, and this is the Terry Nutlob Model Railway Station. A light here for all things model railways. Now, in the last episode, we made this baseboard out of Kingspan thermal insulation foam, 1,200 millimeters long each piece, 450 millimeters wide. Together, in old school money, that makes a 3 foot by 4 foot board. Now, as you saw in the last episode, I brought this Network Traveller train set from Hornby. It's a starter set, and let's just see what comes with it. So here we go. Locomotive, 3 wagons, the controller, as I said last week, and very interestingly, radius 3 track. Now, for people starting in model railways, you may well think, what's radius 3 track? Okay, so this is radius 3 track. This is the track that comes with the set. This is radius 2 and this is radius 1. Radius just means how tight the track is, the tight corner it goes round. And this is the key to the whole reason of why we're doing this project. Because what puts a lot of people off when they start is they get the infamous track mat which comes with the set out, and they start looking at the space it needs. Now, Hornby have done a good thing and a bad thing here. Let me just put this track away and I'll explain. Okay, so on the back, as you can see, it shows you pictures of how you can expand your set. And the trouble is, when people start, they buy a set from a shop, from their model shop, possibly from Amazon is where I got this. And then they start reading the spaces that it needs. And it tells you here it needs this space. And then further up here, it tells you the space required when you expand is 1,800 millimeters by 1,200 millimeters. Now, obviously, that's going to take up a lot of space, basically twice the area we have here. And the same way, this mini mat, as they call it, which is what we have with this set, this size is 1,600 millimeters by 1,180 millimeters. Now, this is obviously going to cause a lot of problems to people because a lot of people can cope with 3 foot by 4 foot on a table. This little layout sits quite happily on this little dining table. But the track mat is twice this size. So unless you want to keep putting it on the floor and then separating it, and that's not ideal, especially when you want to put scenery on a model railway later on, you've got to start thinking smaller. So where Hornby have given you the radius 3 track, what they're thinking of is in the future, you can get much bigger engines and longer coaches and wagons and stuff, and they will happily go around this radius 3 track. But in the set, as you saw, we've got just a small engine and small little wagons. They can quite happily go around radius 1. So in order to save space, what I've done is I've gone and got some radius 1 track, and that is this. Now, the reason we've got Peco track rather than Hornby track that comes in the set is I simply couldn't get at short notice the first radius Hornby track. Hornby make first radius track, I couldn't get hold of any. So I've got Peco set track, and this answers a question that I've been asked quite a few times at shows and exhibitions. People say to me, can I mix the two together? And as I said in the previous episode, yes, you can. All you've got to do when you're starting out, and we'll talk about track in a later episode in pretty extensive depth, but all you've got to do when you start, when you're looking at what track you need to get OO or HO track. It's the same width, but stick with OO track and you've got to go for code 100. Now, all Peco set track is code 100, and all Hornby track is code 100. What's code 100, you're going to say to yourself? Well, code 100 is just the height of the rail. There are other model tracks that are different heights for different reasons. You don't need to worry about that when you're starting. But if you get track, make sure you get the Peco set track or the Hornby track, and they work perfectly well together. They are basically the same thing made by different manufacturers, and you won't have any problems. So let's get some track out, lay it down on the board, and we'll talk about track further on in a moment. Okay, so what I've done is I've laid out all the pieces of track onto the board to make sure everything fits. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a list of all the track number pieces up on the screen for you. This will show you the track I've used, because I've used 2 points and I've added 2 sidings into it for a bit of extra interest in the future, just to make the model something more than a basic oval. But if you're happy with the basic oval, then you stick with that. So I'm going to mark round the track now with a pencil, take it all back up again, and I'm going to paint where the track goes on the baseboard a grey colour. And that way, when I fix the track down permanently, we can see a simulation of ballast underneath the track, but we don't have to ballast it at this moment. Let's get on to doing the next part. So I'm going to lift it all back up, and when you come back, you're going to see a cutaway shot of the layout, and then you're going to see it with the painted ballast underneath. Okay, so what I've done now is I've removed the track again, I've marked around it and painted it grey, and as you can see, this is one half and the other half's exactly the same. That's just out of shot. Hang on a second, I think someone's at the door. I'll be back in a minute. Just wait a minute. My name is Michael Drain, if you want. Now, I'm here to tell you all about the cost of this track. So the ST 2020 Peco track, that's the curves, that'll cost you a total of £43. £43! And the other pieces of track, that's the sidings, if you want them, they will cost you a total of £62.85. So that makes a grand total of £105.85. Right, I'm off to do a job in Italy. I'll see you in another episode. Nice one. Right, yeah, sorry about that. There was no one there, just an old van with no doors on. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to carry on with the track. So we're going to get straight on with the fish plates or the joiners. We'll see you in the next bit. So the last bit we've got to do before we actually start laying the track and finish off the layout is we've got to start removing some of these joiners or fish plates. On the actual full-size railway, they're called fish plates, but a lot of manufacturers, they call them joiners or rail joiners, so that's what we'll call them. So don't forget that at the corners, we've got 4 pieces. What we're going to have to start doing is removing some of these joiners, because where the layout is in 2 halves and we're going to separate it, we need to think about the connection between the 2. And if we use the joiners, it can join together, but it's going to be very awkward. So by removing the joiners and using an electrical connection with a plug and socket, we can solve that problem. Now, this isn't an issue for those who are just starting in the hobby. It's very simple, because what I've got is I've got this Peco Electrics, and it's called a PL80. Now, these are going to replace the joiners. These are joiners that have the wires attached. They've already been pre-soldered for people that aren't keen on soldering or don't know soldering. And when you start in the hobby, you probably don't have a soldering iron, and soldering is a bit of an issue. It's a concern for people new to the hobby. So these are pre-soldered for people. There's no soldering involved. All we're going to do is remove the joiners on these pieces of set track and replace them with these joiners that have wires already attached. Then we're going to attach them to plugs, and the plugs will cause the connection to go across the join, and it will all be very simple. So don't panic, and I'll show you what to do next. So the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to get the pieces of track. Now, we'll just assume this is the join that goes across the actual join between the two boards. With a pair of pliers or the tweezers that come in your little tool set, we simply get hold of the end of this joiner, we pull away, and it comes off. It comes off very, very easily. As long as you've got something to grip it with, it will just pull straight off. So on this end, we've taken one off, and that's it. We just take one off the long length, and then we reconnect all four together. We can put them back in. It's easy to do when they're all separate. And we shall put that down as the length that's the furthest away from the point. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the next piece. So on the next curve, which will go on this end of the point, we need to remove this joiner, which is the one that crosses the join on the two baseboards. We'll need to remove this one and this one, because that's going to make the join that joins between the two. And on this side only, we're going to remove this one and this one, because that's going to be the connection to the power transformer. So on the other side, we only need to remove 1, 2, and 3. And I'll replace them with the power leads, and then the other side is going to be the mirror image of what we've done here. So I've removed the joiners from the end piece, these two and these two. These two and the end that will join to the point I've left as they are. So you can see I've put the black wires on the inside. It doesn't matter, but I've just chosen to put the black wires on the inside. If you keep the colours the same, it makes everything very easy when we wire up. The red ones, therefore, are on the outside. So I've replaced the joiners with the two wires. These two wires will join to the power transformer. These two wires will join across to the board next to it and will form the connection that joins the two boards together. So on the other side, you don't need to change those two. All you need to do is remove the joiner from this long rail, remove these two and replace them with two wires. Again, keep the black on the inside on the short one and the red one on the outside, the long one. And I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so what we've got here is the four main pieces, the left-hand curve, the right-hand curve that we fitted the wires to, the point and straight that forms the siding, and the actual siding itself. And I've joined these all together, pushed them all together on the flat. And what you want to do, it's a good tip, is run your fingers across all of the joins now and make sure they're nice and smooth. If you've not aligned the track correctly, and it is quite easy to do, you'll find there's a little bump when you run your finger across, and that is going to cause a problem. So if there's any bumps, take them apart, put them back together again, and make sure they're all lovely and smooth in all directions. Run your fingers just gently across the top of the rails in both directions, and everything will be fine. So what we're going to do now is pin this down onto the baseboard with some track pins. I've got some track pins. They cost me £2.20. The bag's half empty. I'm only going to be using a few, but the bag that you will get for £2.20, they're Peco track pins or Hornby track pins. They're both the same sort of thing. They both fit through the pre-drilled holes in the track. We're just going to push them down with our fingers into the board, and that will hold this track onto the board perfectly. That's all we have to worry about at the moment. Very, very simple. So we're going to do that now. I'll just give you a little shot of that in a close-up, and then this side will be finished. So what we're going to do now is just with the edge of the track here, with no joiners on, we're going to line it up perfectly straight with the edge of the board. We're going to just adjust it. We can use our fingers here just to feel the join is perfect. And we're going to use these tiny little track pins that come from Peco, but Hornby make the same. We're going to put them through the holes in the track. They're pre-drilled. We just push them down very, very easily with our fingers into this soft foam. Because it's foam, it's very, very easy to push them down into the foam. Now on this one that joins on the edge, we're going to put pins through every single hole. And there's 4 holes on this little piece of track. And we've done that. That's the last one. Because where it holds on the edge, we need to have the maximum grip we can have. Remember, at the moment, there we are, that's so easy to push down with just your finger. Remember, we can glue these later. At the moment, they're not glued, so we can remove them if we need to. We're going to do the whole side now with the pins. I'm not going to show you that. It's just basically a repetition of what I've just showed you. Very, very easy. A simple push down with your finger into the track. As simple as that. Then the other side is the mirror image. I shall do that, and then we shall come back and show you the wiring up to join the 2 halves together. Right, so now what we've done is we've laid all the track, it's all pinned on, and as you can see it joins across. We can separate it nice and easily, and it just, with the magnets, joins back together. So Desmond is going to join me on the next little section because we're going to be doing some wiring up. So we'll see you there. Hello, so for this section, Desmond is joining us. He's a little bit concerned about electricity, and so we all should be. But what we're doing here is wiring up the layout, and there's no need to worry at all. If you're a little bit concerned because this is all new to you, you don't have to be. Because this Hornby adapter, as it's called, AC adapter, basically you plug that into the wall, 240 volts from the mains voltage goes into this transformer, but coming out of this lead is 19 volts DC. So you can touch this with your fingers. It's not going to cause you any harm at all. It's perfectly safe. Always use this. It protects you from any damage at all. And this is what Desmond wants to remind us of, that we have to be careful with electricity. But the point is, with this, we're totally safe. And don't forget, of course, you use the transformer and the controller that comes in the set, and everything will work great. So we're going to move on to using the connectors and wiring up and joining the layout together, and then we'll see some trains running and the layout will be close to being finished. So for the next part, what we're going to do is we're going to use these connectors. Now these came from Temu, but you can get them from anywhere really. You can get them on eBay. And what they are like chocolate block connectors. You'll see these type of things everywhere. But these connectors have got little metal pins that basically join into the other side. Now these connectors, you can get them from, like I say, Temu or eBay, and they come in strips of 12. And basically, as you can see, I've already pre-cut them. They push into each other very easily and connect. Now I've cut them with scissors, or you can connect them and join them and cut them with these clippers or anything at all, or even a sharp craft knife, but please be careful, don't cut your fingers. So what we're going to do now is use the female, as they call it, because this part has the receptors where the pins go into. We're going to use the female side and put that to receive the power from the power transformer and the controller. And we're going to use the male part, which has the pins sticking out, onto this piece, which will transfer the power across onto the other board. So what I'm going to do is, with the female one, which will be fixed here, because the power transformer and the controller will connect into that, I'm going to use one of these plasterboard screws like we used in the first episode. I'm going to attach it with that and a spot of glue. That will hold it down to the baseboard because we don't want that to move. But this piece that will connect across, I'm just going to wire it up with the little screwdriver that comes in the set, and that will move. On the other side, I'm going to do the same, but of course we won't be using the power transformer and controller. It will just be the connection, and that will be loose as well, just attached to the cables. So I'm going to do that. You don't need to see that on camera. It's basically just using a screwdriver and putting the cables into the little slots and tightening them up. Once you've done that, we'll come back, see what it looks like, and then we'll be very close to running some trains. So the very last part we're going to do before we get some trains running is, this is the controller. Now on the back it comes with a little wrap around it telling you instructions and a little bit of a safety warning, and Desmond was very excited about that, being very health and safety conscious. And it's very simple. Basically you just connect the transformer into the input. It won't go into any other setting. You can't put it into anything else, and the cable that comes out goes into the plug that I'll show you in a second. There's also an output that says 14 volts uncontrolled. That is for accessories, for things later on that we don't need to worry about now. So basically we use the cable that comes out of it. Now this is a important part. When you get it from the set, these two pieces at the end are joined together. They're designed to fit into the track power connector that we're not using on this model. So because of that, we're going to plug them into here. We need to separate them. They're joined by a little piece of plastic between the two, and I've just cut them with scissors. Now you could cut them with a craft knife or whatever you want to use, but please be careful. Don't cut the craft knife towards the cable, cut it away, and just be careful not to cut your fingers. But I just use scissors and cut through the little plastic web that joins the two, so that these two connectors will spread slightly further apart, and they will then fit into this connector, which will then plug into the female socket, joining all the power to the track. So I'm just going to do that, and then when you come back, we're going to see the layout joined together, and there's going to be a train running on it for the very first time. So as you can see, the train is now running around the layout, and it goes across those joins, which, don't forget, are held together only with magnets, absolutely seamlessly. Let's just have a little gentle pan down with the camera, and as we follow the train, we'll see the whole layout. So here it comes around the top of the cross joint, and then we come down following the train, and we see it pass across the bottom joint with those two cables that connect in that block connector that join the two boards together. And if we go left, we can see the controller that again is joined to the board with that connector so that it can be unplugged and put away. And all of this means the whole layout can be packed away in just 60 seconds and put into a cupboard for storage. So in another episode that follows from this, we're going to be putting basic scenery onto this layout and turning this layout from a train set into a model railway. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the next episode, which will be in a couple of weeks, which will be showing you how we're going to do basic scenery, we're going to have uncoupler ramps, and we can do shunting and all sorts of things to elaborate with this basic railway set. And we're going to gradually, over the next few episodes, turn it from a train set into a model railway. So I hope to see you then, and if you've liked this episode, please like and subscribe. It's free to you and it does help the channel. And don't forget, there's only one more thing to say, and that is, nice one. I'll see you next time.